Hi guys, welcome to the first afternoon session today in track 3. 10 quick steps to disaster. Once again, if you haven't had him yet, this is Mike Weber, so give him a nice round of applause, please.
So we want to talk about some things you can do wrong. And I want to focus on some solutions more than on the disasters because everybody has done them. It happens. And so there's a lot of things that you can easily do that will cause you trouble with Nagios. I do training for Nagios and I do consulting. So I see hundreds of different setups every year. And some of them are fabulous setups and work with people who are really skilled, got great ideas. And some, not so much. And so it is important that what you do is try to solve the problems that you could be on the horizon to make sure that you don't have issues. So let's look at a couple of these. First of all, objects. One of the most important things that you can become good at is understanding the relationships between objects, host checks, service checks, host groups, service templates. All of these objects are interrelated, and it's important that you understand these interrelations because you will be asking the question from time to time, I thought I changed that. Where is this configuration coming from? And it's because of the relationships between objects. So as we look at these objects, where are they coming from? And you can see that there is object inheritance. In other words, just because you have a service check, there is stuff getting pushed to that service check. Now in Nagios Core, you're going to be less likely to make mistakes simply because when you write your configuration files, you make a reference to a template. You recognize that. Those of you who are using Nagios XI, you use a wizard, you set it up, and you don't really see where stuff comes from. And it's easy to make serious problems not understanding where those things come from. So object inheritance is something we want to look at quickly to show you how things are related. Objects, when they're inherited, have priorities. There is a listing. If you have one object and then you add another object, those priorities, the first one's going to have priorities over the other one. Local settings are going to have priorities over service templates or host templates or settings in another file. And so you need to understand those relationships. Objects can be chained together. In other words, you can take a number of templates and chain them all together to create one configuration. Also, you can have objects that you create. Let's say that you have a service template, and it can be incomplete. In other words, I'm going to show you an example. The only thing it has is an icon. Maybe it only has one setting you want to push to all your Red Hat servers or your Debian servers or your Windows servers. And that's all it does. So it's an incomplete object, but you can use it, chain it, bring that inheritance into your system. You can cancel inheritance. Just because you have a template up above or down below, a template up above that is trying to push something down, you want to use the template, but you don't want to use everything, you can cancel parts. And I'm going to show you how to cancel some of that inheritance. Or you can append the inheritance. In other words, if you had a local setting that said, okay, this network group is going to get notifications, you could have a template and append from another object and say, I also want another group from that template. So working with these templates and working with these objects to get this all to work correctly is part of the major goal to avoid disaster. So here is an example of Yahoo. Say you're going to monitor search engines. So here's Yahoo, and you can see in this we've got a lot of different options here, and this is 2012, by the way, if you're looking at this from an XI perspective. And so let's look at some of the objects that are related to this if we set this up. The first thing that we're going to see, it's a host, of course, and we have a template that is connected to this host. So you can see XiWizard website host. So this template that you see, XiWizard website host, it has settings. It's pushing them into your host. And so one of the things to think about is whenever you create something, and again, this is especially true in Xi, it's going to be using templates. You need to know what templates it's connected to so you can evaluate, are these the settings I want? Here's another example. This is the host, and you go to look at host groups. There's no host groups. It's not in a host group. Is that correct? No. Look closer. See the search engines? The search engines is grayed out. This is one of the newer features in 2012. So it's been set somewhere else. That's what we're looking at here. And so here is the indication, hey, it's not in any host groups. You can get fooled by that because you don't realize that it could be set somewhere else on the system. And so 2012 is trying to help you see that by seeing that grayed out example. And sure enough, there's the search engine group, and you can see Yahoo's in that group. So you might have been fooled not realizing that there are settings coming from that are getting pushed into your template, your host that we have there. Now in Xi, and this is also true of 2011, the icon's orange instead of blue, but you click on that, you can see the relationships. And they've done this for a reason, to help people think about the relationships between other objects. So if you're ever in doubt, just click that info icon, whether it's a host or a service, and it will show you the relationships that it has. For example, relation to contacts, entry Nagios admin, relation to host groups, it's in the search engines. So if you would have looked in the host management and saw that there was no connections, you would have maybe been fooled. But Nagios is trying to help you out saying, hey, look, you are connected to another template. So settings are coming from those situations. This is probably the most important thing that you need to think about. If I could tell you anything that will save you time in terms of management, it's this principle. Local settings always take precedent over any kind of inheritance. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you have decided that you want to monitor 100 search engines. And so you use the wizard to set up those 100 search engines, or in Nagios Core you set that all up, and you put in those local settings. In other words, in the host management, I have my check interval set, my retry interval, my max check attempts, my check period. I've placed all of those in my local host setting. And I've done that with 100 servers. And then somebody says, oh no, we don't want to check at 5-minute intervals, we want to check at 7-minute intervals. Guess what? You got to touch every one of those systems. Every one of those files. You got to open it up, change it from 5 to 7. You can't push that from a template because it's local. It's at the bottom of the line. So the importance here is if you want to manage a large group of servers or anything that's similar, any kind of devices that are similar, so Windows servers, Linux servers, SQL servers, MySQL servers, Apache web servers, anything that can be in a group, start thinking about managing it with a template, because you can place the template up above it and you can change all 100 servers with one click. You want to change the time check interval? One click. You want to change the check period? One click. You don't want to have to manage